Hello everyone and welcome to this week's Adobe plugins tutorial. This one is primarily for After Effects, but I'm going to be going over memory and variable cleanup in your plugin. This is going to both make sure that your plugin is functioning properly and not popping you errors for certain type definitions, and it's also going to make sure that you're not having memory leaks, which is quite common if you're creating like effect worlds and these aren't cleaned up after the fact or after they've been composited and rendered. This will make a little bit more sense when we take a look at them on the left side here versus what they look like inside of the code itself. But we're just going to be going over how to basically use the AEFX clear struct for different types of data in the plugin, which is going to make it run smoothly and faster memory wise. Before we get started, I do want to remind you down below, hit subscribe and the bell icon to be notified of new videos coming out twice weekly on the channel. And down in the description, you can check us out on GitHub. We have lots of example plugin code that you can follow along and learn from on there. And make sure you follow us there for coding updates, and in the description, follow us on Instagram for other live updates. If you're not a member of the Discord server, you can come and join and get help with scripting, extensions, plugins, expressions, submit tutorial ideas, and much more. We have a lot of plugin discussion going on these days in the Discord server, so if you have any questions, come on over and ask them in here. And if you'd like to help support the YouTube channel and get cool perks at the same time, you can become a member, supporter, premium supporter, or VIP. And some of these perks include things like badges, custom emojis, getting code a week in advance, be part of a live streams to learn and just hang out, and a whole bunch more. So let's go ahead and go over what exactly memory and variable cleanup means in the context of this tutorial. Essentially, one thing that is important to know is that you need to clear up structures or different data types or variables you define generally inside of plugin development. This is just sort of required in order for you to not have memory problems or just general errors which prevent you from running your code. Another reason is to basically remove full or filled up variables from your setup, and we'll be going over this second. But first, we're going to go over the required types, which is clearing our structure for our ParamDefs. If you're not familiar, inside of our params setup of any plugin or any plugin that has a UI, we have all of our parameters we set up. In this case, I have here like a point effect, and then I have a checkbox. But you can also see this other code before each definition. We have AEFX clear struct, and you can see we're clearing our def function here. Now, in this case, our ParamDef is basically referring to our interface elements. If we right-click on AEFX clear struct and peek the definition, it's not going to tell us much, but basically what this function or method is designed to do is clear any sort of data structure we create, and this is going to apply to many things, but this one in particular is most important. Before every single definition of your parameters in your user interface of your plugin, you need to say AEFX clear your ParamDef. If your ParamDef had a different name, just like ParamDef, then you would of course need to clear the struct of that particular ParamDef. But in this case, it's generally just defined as def. So you want to make sure you clear the struct before you create that interface element. Then you can see we have another interface element down here, so we're going to clear our structure. There's only maybe one exception to this, is when you're making a topic. A topic is sort of a drop-down type of deal. If I go ahead and create a composition here and apply, for example, let's go with false color here. You can see here I have a slider effect with the num colors, but I also have what's called a topic. A topic is one of these sort of drop-down things. The way topics work is slightly different. If I go ahead and load up the project for this, and then I will navigate to my param setup, you can see we have the normal AEFX clear struct, and then I have my slider here defined, and then the way it works again with topics can be a little bit different. The structure is very similar, but we don't need to put a clear struct after every definition. So before we define our topic, which is the actual holder here, before we define it, we'll clear the struct, then we'll add our topic. Then you just need to clear the struct for the first element of that topic. This topic here, for example, color 1 has a color, a start luma, and an end luma. So I have these three different elements here, and we only need to clear the struct before the first one. So that's just a little bit of a trick. If you have no topics in your whole UI, you basically just put a clear struct before every single definition of one of these elements. If you have a topic, clear the struct before the topic and clear the struct for the first element of the topic. Even when you end the topic, which defines where the end of your sort of drop down is, you don't need to clear the struct. And again, here's topic number 2. We clear the def before it, and then we only clear the struct on the first element of that topic, and then we don't have to do it again until we exit that topic. So that's sort of the params setup clear struct requirements. That's just to make sure it runs smoothly. If you don't do this in the right structure, it can cause issues, and it's not going to tell you you need to clear the struct. It might just give you an arbitrary error that you don't understand. So it's very important that you clear the struct before every ParamDef, and if there's a topic, clear before the topic and clear the first element of the topic. Repetition is very important in this, and it will come a long ways in avoiding simple, silly errors. Now next, I have 2 more ideas for this. We have clear struct for an effect world and for custom structs. Now, effect worlds are something you create in order to fill up sort of an imaginary layer or an imaginary world, which you can then put into the output buffer, or you can composite it on top of other things, combine them, and do whatever you need to. So I'm going to load up a plugin here with an effect world that is created. In this case, I have a PF effect world, which again is just like a layer called out world. I set the width and the height of this according to whatever our output needs to be, but later on, what I do with this world is I could do anything. I could fill it with just red pixels and have a red world, which we can use to composite on top of later. We could do a whole bunch of operations with the iterate functions, use convolution. We can do whatever we want to this effect world. We can copy our input, make modifications, and blend that on top. But after we fill this world, we need to also clear the struct. Because if we just have a whole bunch of variables with millions and millions of pixels floating around on our computer's memory, that's going to add up a lot of stress, and we need to be able to clear that structure as well too. So this is being defined in the overall render function. So what you'd want to do at the very end to clean it up is just say aefx underscore clear struct, and I believe it was called outWorld. And then that's going to make sure that that world, which contains tons and tons of pixels and takes up a lot of memory, is cleaned up whenever we finish our render process. In the end of everything in our renders, we're sending everything to the output buffer. So even though we have these world variables that contain other stuff, we need to make sure they're cleaned up. This isn't required, but you're going to notice if you have a whole bunch of these, they're going to start to add up and kill your memory or CPU usage. All right, the very last thing that we're typically going to clear is custom structs. Custom structs are what we create in our H files, and this is usually how we get input from our UI and send it over into our different functions, whether it's iterate or whatever. So in this case, I have a film scan info struct, which contains things like the grain amount, the shake amount, posterized time amount, an integer for looks, and for film burn. And these are all things that we're going to fill in with our UI information and then send into our various functions. So if I go ahead and copy this in my main CPP, we have it defined here. We also need to clear this particular struct. That way we have basically a fresh slate to fill in all these variables with. And usually this is going to be inside of your actual render function. If you're using smart effects, or inside of your regular render function as well, whenever you set it up. So here we have a film scan info type struct, which again we defined in our H file. This is pretty common practice in plugin development, and after we define it, we just called it BIP here. We're going to clear that struct to make sure before we fill it up with all of the values here, which you can see if I uncomment this, we have a whole bunch of param values from our sliders and our checkboxes, which we're filling in. We want to clear that struct as well, the same way we cleared our parameter structs for our UI and any other variables like our worlds before. So that's also important. It's again not always required, but it might give you errors as well. It's just to make sure everything's clean. And the more you practice all of this, the more you'll become familiar with how it's all set up. A lot of this is just learned from looking through the example projects that are included in the SDK. A lot of it's not something I necessarily figured out myself, but a lot of it is very important to make your plugin work. But that's going to do it for this video, guys. I hope you enjoyed. That's how to clean up variables and manage your memory inside of plugins. If you enjoyed the video, hit the thumbs up button. Down below, hit subscribe and the bell icon to be notified of new videos coming out twice weekly in the channel. And down in the description, you can check out all of our code in GitHub, check out our examples of plugins and follow along. Make sure you follow us there for coding updates, and in the description, follow us on Instagram for other live updates. If you're not a member of the Discord server, you can come and join and get help with scripting, extensions, plugins, expressions, and much more. And if you'd like to help support the YouTube channel and get cool perks, you can become a member, supporter, premium supporter, or VIP, link in the description. Thanks again for watching. We'll see you guys next time.